Hello and welcome to Upstart Goblin University, Hardleg Gaming's guide to strategy and tactics in Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm Hardleg Joe, and in this lesson I'll be talking about consistency, the importance of draw power, and why the deck should almost always be 40 cards. Like it or not, there is an element of luck involved in Yu-Gi-Oh! Anytime you draw a card from the top of your deck, you're at the mercy of probability. A consistent deck is one that's designed to reduce that element of random chance as much as possible. Before I can explain how to make a good deck more consistent, I first have to explain what makes a deck good in the first place. Obviously, a good deck is one that wins a lot, and in order to do that, most decks need a win condition. A win condition describes the specific tactic that a deck uses to win. For most decks, this involves using 2 or more cards in combination to either set up an imposing field, prevent your opponent from playing, or generate massive amounts of card advantage. I'll talk more about win conditions in a future episode of UGU. For now, you just need to understand the basic idea. That is, most good decks have one strong win condition, which they can achieve by using 2 or 3 specific cards. The faster the player can get those cards, the more likely it is they'll win. This is where consistency comes in. Making a deck consistent means designing it so that all the pieces of its win condition are drawn in the first few turns as often as possible. There are 3 key tactics you can use to accomplish this. First and foremost, you should make your deck exactly 40 cards, the minimum allowed in Yu-Gi-Oh! This is because the less cards you have to draw from, the more likely it is that you'll draw the cards you need. This principle can be understood by looking at some simple ratios. If you have 40 different cards in your deck and you want to draw one specific card, then the chances it'll be on the top are 1 in 40, meaning you'll draw it once every 40 tries, or roughly 3% of the time. If your deck is 60 cards, then your chances are decreased to 1 in 60, or roughly 2%. Now, 1% difference may not seem like much, but that small advantage increases exponentially when you have multiple copies of a card in your deck. This leads us to the next key tactic: run as many copies of your win condition cards as possible. Of course, the rules state you can only run 3 copies of any given card, but you can get around this limitation with searchers. A searcher is any card that lets you add another card from your deck to your hand. To illustrate the power of searching, let's look at an example. Let's say you're trying to make a competitive Toon deck. Your win condition will most certainly involve Toon Kingdom, so it's critically important that you get that card within your first few turns. To do this, you obviously start by running 3 copies of Toon Kingdom. Then, because it's a field spell, you'll want to run 3 copies of Terraforming. Since Terraforming allows you to grab a field spell from your deck, getting it in the first turn is the same as getting Toon Kingdom. From a probability standpoint, it's like having 3 extra copies of Toon Kingdom in your deck. In addition, you'll also probably want to run 3 copies of Toon Table of Contents, since it also searches out Toon Kingdom along with any other Toon card. With all of those searchers, you essentially have 9 copies of Toon Kingdom in your deck. This means that the chances you have to draw it as your first card are 9 in 40, roughly 22%. And that percentage assumes you're only drawing 1 card from a 40-card deck. If you're drawing an opening hand of 5 cards, not only do you have 5 chances to draw Toon Kingdom, but every time you draw and don't get it, your chances of drawing it with your next attempt go up. Why? Because each time you make your deck slightly smaller. Basically, if your opening 5 cards doesn't already have Toon Kingdom or a searcher for it, then the chances you'll draw one from the remaining cards is now 9 in 35, more than 25%. This brings us back to our first key tactic. If you recall, the less cards you have to draw from, the more likely it is you'll draw something with a lot of copies. You accomplish this initially by only running 40 cards in your deck, but you can supplement this with the third key tactic: draw power. By now it should be obvious why draw power is good. The more you draw, the more chances you have to get your win condition. And even if you don't draw the cards you need, you now have less cards in your deck, meaning that your chances of getting your win condition in the future have increased. If you're still confused, let's look at an example. Say you draw your opening hand and you get 3 Upstart Goblins and 2 Chicken Game. Playing every card won't give you any extra cards in your hand. You'll still only have 5. But that last card you draw will be from a deck that only contains 31 cards, so your chances of getting your win condition have gone up considerably. Like with all tactics though, consistency isn't everything. Toolbox decks can run effectively with only 1 or 2 copies of key cards. In addition, being consistent also means being predictable and thus easier to counter. Also, there's always a chance that this might happen. With most decks, though, being consistent is definitely a plus. Now that you understand the principles behind consistency, you should be able to build much more competitive and effective decks. Well, that's it for this lesson of Upstart Goblin University. Please like and share this video if you enjoyed it, and if you'd like to see more similar videos, you can check out my channel, or subscribe if you'd like updates. Thanks for watching, good luck, and have fun.